Can we all just admit now that the Owl House is mid? A miracle in disguise, because there is no reason for Season 3 to have stuck the landing as well as it did, especially after Disney heard "Don't Say Gay" and decided to say less, turning the last 20 episode order of the Owl House into 3 specials. Is why stand for anything when you're not the one being thrown under the bus? This season was cheated, robbed, and put on YouTube. But despite all of that, it still somehow managed to land an ending that almost made me cry. Almost got me. So in honor of the absolute legends that brought us a generation-defining hyperfixation, let's talk about The Owl House Season 3. What it did well, why the finale's a banger, and where it faltered. As yeah, Episode 2, for real, mid. But even if a lot of moments are just 6 and 7s, a 10 is still a 10, plus you can forgive it, given the circumstances. So, after one trip to the Boiling Isles was done, Luce decided to start a new one, Guilt. Back with her mom, Camila is unknowingly competing with Ida over who can collect the most orphans, with the rest of the episode being about Camila's orphanage looking for a way back to the Boiling Isles, while also dealing with the last thing every absent parent leaves you, emotional baggage, aka Hunter. Now personally, this might be my favorite episode out of the 3, being blessed by the fact that it's not on the clock like the episodes that follow. Thanks to them, has the luxury to give us a glimpse at what this part of the season might have been, with a fun montage that gave us hints at the possible stories that might have been explored, but still canonically happened. From Hunter getting a new cut to look less like his father, uncle, brother, Luce getting to say bye to her mom, but most importantly, Gus discovering Drip. It's not heavily explored, but you can see that these events have happened, allowing the story that we do follow to feel more complete, while also giving everyone a part to play in building up to the finale, with the standouts here easily being Hunter and Camila. Hunter learns to thrive after years of being controlled by Belos, with those mental scars still lingering and affecting him. And we see how being part of a group of friends that love and support him allows Hunter to heal and escape Belos' shadow, as this kid tried doing it on his own, and it was not working out. While for Camila, we finally get the extra context we need to better understand her and her relationship with Luce. How she always wanted to support Luce's goofy ass, but her own experiences of being bullied and pressured by other school figures made her want to protect Luce from that same pain of being labeled weird. Hence the fun-killing summer camp. These moments elevate this episode to being genuinely great, so even when there's just shenanigans, it's never dull and has something impactful around every corner. We get just the right amount of feels till they get ruined by some colonizing pond scum. Now, I love me a masked villain. Childhood made me a slut for them, but Belos has never been better than this season, as all the veneer of being a reasonable but cruel authority figure is stripped away to reveal what a pathetic hater he actually is. We never get that flashback that reveals his whole backstory, but there is just so much joy in how even someone with no knowledge of who he is able to put together the basics.
It's like Big Bro got a hot witch girlfriend and Little Bro got upset, but that's just me.
Like, yeah, I would have loved to have gotten the flashback to these murals, but there is just something cathartic in how casually the show treats his motivations. He's not complex, he's not tragic, and even after hundreds of years of living with witches, he has never allowed any of it to change the opinions that he had when he was 20. Belos is just a hater who can't fathom that the system he grew up in was wrong, and has spent every second denying reality to satisfy his own ego. So watching the cast just come to realize how small and petty he is, it's great. Hunter being able to reject him is great, as this man is truly not worth the hype. Belos is still dangerous, but he's desperate at having to think on the spot, which adds a lot of fun to his plotting, as Belos has to dance around the elephant in the room just like everyone else, till he eats the other one. But to get back on track to episode 1, it's fire. You can feel when the budget kicks in, till it doesn't, with the Owl Gang returning to the Boiling Isles with Camila. I really like this episode. It does everything it needs to, with the only real complaints that I have being more of a question of my personal taste than its quality, as I might just hate heroes guilt-tripping themselves over things that aren't their fault plot lines more than Belos hates witches. Is it in character? Yes. Is the angst constrained by the time limit? You bet. But watching these storylines makes me want to claw the bones out of my body. Yes, Luce, your friends forgive you. It was never a problem, you're a good kid. Now let's move the fuck on. I like the idea of questioning the hero's journey after your isekai went wrong, but I'm counting the seconds till this guilt trip is over, so I am incredibly biased to hating this plotline. The story does a decent enough job to it, but especially when you take into account how it ends in episode 2, where it's just her being bummed out and penitent, just going, oh, I don't want to stay in the Boiling Isles. It just kind of feels like it's an artificial low to make her big acceptance character moment feel all the higher, which I guess it does. There's just not enough time to do anything great with it. Alright, loved episode 1, now let's talk about the unloved middle child.
Buddy, you gotta stop doing that.
So yeah, I already did an episode where I gave my thoughts on For the Future. It's fine. This is the one where you can feel the story struggling with all the content it had to cut. The story stalls the second they hit Hexside. The tension of being in this post-apocalypse just vanishes. Kiki is irrelevant. Basha, I don't even know why you're here. If they had more time, this could work. As is, nah. Where the episode succeeds, though, is giving closure and screen time to the rest of the, let's be honest, they're the B team, whose spoilers don't have anything to do in the finale. So this episode works great as a last hurrah, to give focus to Willow, Gus, and a grieving Hunter. Yes, this is the episode that confirmed Huntlow. Luz realized her greatest wish was understanding. Great moment. It all feels cramped together, though. String Bean is adorable, and kinda just in the background for the rest of the show, just like Amity. Though if I'm being honest, for all my minor gripes, the only thing that I really hate about this episode is just how they use the miscommunication trope, where if the Collector had just kept listening for a few more seconds, they would have understood that King wasn't trying to kill him. The show is on a deadline. The Collector's a dumb kid, but a situation like this is never tragic. It just feels lazy. That's honestly the most negative thing I have to say about this entire season. So, let's move on to the finale.
You turn on the light.
So, everything went from Huntlow to Wurs. Bayless has possessed the best of them. The Collector has been tricked into turning on King, imprisoning the entire cast in the Matrix so that he can bully them. Luce is still on that I'm just as bad as Bellows grind, but with cosplay. Being tortured in the worst way a teen can imagine, having her friends call her a bad person. Again, hate this arc, trope, plot point, whatever you want to call it. So I'm kind of just going through the motions of Luce interacting with Amity and Willow. Both of them rail against her for being the reason everything went to shit. Which isn't true, and let's be honest, Luce unknowingly helped Bellows, yes, but he was gonna get the Collector in that last clip eventually. He had all the time in the world to do this. So with that lack of blame, and just not really doing enough to make me care about this idea, Amity calling Luce the true villain, and Willow blaming her for what's happened to the Boiling Isles is just kinda eh. Like, it's nightmare fuel for sure, but it's just saying the quiet part
Hero. Everywhere he went, people ended up suffering.
or the not so quiet part out loud. Nightmare Gus is where it finally starts to hit home. As yes, Luz blames herself, penitent hero, rada rada rada. Then Gus gives the gut punch, pointing out how they helped her get back to her mom at the cost of being separated from their parents. That for all the talk about helping people, she's a hypocrite who ends up getting what she wanted, while everyone else ends up with nothing. Something driven even further by Hunter, talking about how the day after he lost Flapjack, Luce got her own talisman. It's all cruel and vicious, but unlike the woe is me, I messed up crap, this cuts to something that the show has left unstated. That Luce did get back to her mom, that her friends, while adapting well to the human world, did get locked away from their families. So while they never blamed her, this is something that Luce would feel guilty about, that every time she was happy with her mom, the quiet voice would nod her, saying that she doesn't have the right to feel this way, while her friends are hurting and they must hate her for that. It's not true, but it's the worst assumption possible, so of course Luce would think about it. Gus and Hunter's accusations feel raw and personal, while the Amity and Will lines are generic, you're bad, so you should feel bad. Thankfully, we have Luce utilizing the power of hyperfixation to spot the fake, realizing that this isn't real, that her friends are imprisoned, who give her a glyph and allow her to wake up. And this is my only CinemaSins type note. Or no, it doesn't matter or affect the plot, it doesn't kill my viewing experience in the slightest. I just want to know, though, how Amity figured out that a light glyph is what breaks you out of the Collector's control. But Luce wakes up, frees Ida from the nightmare of going 2 for 2, they hug, moving on, and then we're saddled with the Collector trying to play with them personally. It does not go well for him, with Luce taking the time to actually talk to the Collector, as yes, in spite of all the godlike power, they're still just a child alien with no real concept of death, viewing everyone as toys that he can break and fix with no consequences. Where everyone else before has viewed him as a problem that has to be manipulated or managed, Luce approaches him as just a kid, putting in the work King couldn't by flipping the Collector in under an hour, solidifying one of the show's overarching themes about the power of acceptance. Every person that Luce has met in the Boiling Isles wasn't their ideal self, instead suffocating under the rules and restrictions of the society they lived in, with Luce getting them to open up, to love them for who they are and allowing those she met to love themselves and to flourish. Like, I do roll my eyes a bit at the immortal god who has spent millennia living, who has had playmates, alleged friends, and just lots of time to experience life. Yet it's not until they meet the main character do they get character developments. But it's genuinely a good moment and message that ties what I like about this the most. As this, and this is gonna sound weird, the finale feels less like a climax and more like an ending. I know that sounds weird, let me explain. See, a lot of shows have somber endings, where the sadness of having to let go of the story and the characters hit us. But that emotional anvil usually waits until the last couple minutes. Instead, we get this massive sense of momentum, where this is everything that the story has led up to. The pedals to the metal, and we're ending this on a high note. And I feel like the strength of this finale isn't that momentum like, oh, we're gonna fight Belos. There's this bittersweet beauty instead. When Luce is winning over the Collector, she doesn't just talk to him. Instead, we go to the various locations that were impactful to her, and to us, the audience. It's a poignant trip down memory lane that really stuck with me after the episode. As it really does feel like, yeah, it sucked what happened to the show. We know it, and they know it. But rather than trying to rush a conclusion that we all know is coming, it takes a chance to linger on what made it great. As soon, all we'll have is the memory. There's a reason that the first letter of each episode spells out "thanks for watching." The fans love the show, and the people behind it love them back. Even if this wasn't how we wanted it to end, Dana Terrence and the rest of the Owl crew made the ending that the Owl House deserved, and took the time to reflect on what made it great. And I think that's beautiful.
You just need kindness and forgiveness, huh?
Alright, the Collector tried to do what the internet accuses Steven Universe of. That moment made me laugh way harder than it should have. Like, I was in a state. So much so that Luce dying did not faze me. It might be my favorite Disney fake-out death, with the story being as quiet and contemplative as it is. It almost feels like it could go through with it. The shots of her friends and family all seeing the bits of her soul without understanding what's happening, Ida raging out, the Collector finally understanding what death is, and it isn't just a hard turn to, oh, someone's dying. The show nails the vibe so well that I don't even care that it's a fake-out. Like, of course we get Luce back. She meets the Appendix's genderqueer father. He's dope.
Does that make us as bad as Belos?
Yet again, this could have been explored way more in the expanded season, but Luce worries about being just as bad as the bigot. Mostly feels like it's just here to hammer home the delineation between the concept of forgiveness and those who deserve it, which is a point the show makes crystal clear before and after this scene, so I don't think we really need to say it again, other than cementing the obvious that Belos is a narcissist who only pays lip service to helping people to justify his atrocities while pretending that he's the hero, like a true real-world villain. But then we move on, and to my delight, we go full anime. Luce gets the Titan's powers, and is just her perfect dorky self. Meanwhile, the Collector just kinda fucks off to the sidelines with everyone else. Budget kicks in, main characters fight, filled with tons of cute callbacks to earlier in the show, before plunging into the heart of the beast. In more shipping news, Ida finds Rain, who was unable to stop Belos from fusing with the heart. These two are adorable, not sure if there's enough to do a video about it, so let me know in the comments if I should make that happen. But the animation is going off, Luce gets one last eat this, and rips Belos off the heart, saving the day, and in the most satisfying of scenes, Luce ices out all of Belos' lies and attempts to drag her down to his level, instead just letting the boiling rain melt his body, and after all the lies, all his protect humanity BS, he has nothing. No power over anyone, no guilt or grip on his victims. Everyone sees him for exactly what he is, a pathetic relic of colonialism and Puritan hate, getting curb stomped to death by a bisexual amputee with a pre-existing condition, a non-binary witch he tried to indoctrinate, and king. This is good feeling. This is pride. And from here, it's all wrap-up mode. Good feelings all around, all the kids are reunited with their parents, Hunter gets adopted, the elders get a power nap, and the Collector just dips, which is kinda just okay? Like, he just figured out death and friendship, so he's just gonna go back to space? I know the rest of the town probably hates him. It's kinda weird how he spent the first half of the episode building this personal connection and he just goes away. But whatever, time skip. Luce is off to college in the Boiling Isles, and I love her. Love the design. I love everyone's design. They're all reaching their final form. Huntlow is officially a thing. He has become a professor of wild magic and is also wearing Rain's earring. Amazing. Lilith and Hootie, killing it. Principal got to retire, good for him. All the harm from Belos' reign is slowly being undone. And yes, the one time I nearly teared up watching this episode was noticing how the gang all got matching flapjack tattoos. I don't know why, More than the grave, that just did it for me. And so many people are gonna get this tattoo. And if this video got 1 million views, I would consider it. But the ending is just all the feels. After all the hardship and trauma, everyone has healed and is thriving. With one final goodbye from the Owl House, and it does it in its own special way. Nice somber emotions, having a little fun, being a little awkward, and us loving every second of it.
On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye!
Overall, I really enjoyed this season. The Owl House has long been a show that I feel like I've been rubbernecking for a while. This was never my all-consuming passion, but if I was younger when this came out, I would have been obsessed. For me, I can always respect the craft of the Owl House. It does such a good job of working within the limitations it's given, being serialized on the Disney Channel, all the rules and restrictions that come with that, and finding a way of telling the story that they want to tell, telling one of acceptance, of having all the representation, during a time where said acceptance no longer feels like an inevitability. This show stuck the landing, said it with its chest, and I know it's gonna stick with people long after it's done. While it may have stumbled here or there, the Owl House was something special, and I think every kid needs a show like this at least once in their life.